Hi, I'm Dr. Rosie Main. I'm here with Maximize Living. We're going to be talking about our advanced plan. And like we've talked specifically, we have 3 plans in our recipe book. And we're going to be talking about the most important one right now, which is the advanced plan. I really feel that everybody should be on the advanced plan at least 2 to 3 months. And I'm going to explain why. I think the biggest reason people have a hard time with this plan is because you don't understand the why before the how. And so the biggest purpose of doing the advanced plan is to go back and heal the cellular cell wall. And so many times what happens with the type of diets we are with today's culture is a lot of our diseases are created from inflammation. So when you look at the cell membrane is created by a double layer of fat, and so it's called a phospholipid bilayer. Well, this cell wall also has receptors attached to it that are like antennas that listen to hormones, and primarily one of the top 2 hormones that are getting just a hard time listened to is leptin and insulin. And so if you guys don't understand, leptin specifically is the hormone that tells your body to burn fat for energy. The problem is that in today's world is that when we were created to burn fat for energy, we've been eating so much bad fats and bad sugar that the reality is we're burning out the receptors that actually hear these hormones. So when you eat lots of bad fat as a child or lots of sugar, you wipe out the receptors to insulin and to leptin, and therefore creating a cell that no longer can hear these hormones. And so now you're wondering why your body is craving sugar all the time. You become a sugar craver because you don't hear the leptin, and then before you know it, now you're burning out the receptors for insulin that create what we call pre-diabetes, insulin resistance. And so we're creating these diseases such as diabetes, such as heart disease, and it doesn't have to happen. So the beauty is that your body's always creating new cells, and so we can go back and take out all the things that are destroying this cell wall and actually start putting in what God meant for us to eat, and how our bodies are created to heal is by giving it the right nutrients. So we're going to be talking about specific things that create this inflammation. Now, sugar is by far the worst thing with today's culture. It's everywhere. Like we talked about, all these processed foods that you see, from everything from high fructose corn syrup, even the good sugar is everywhere. And so we definitely want to avoid these things for a certain period of time. So if it takes 90 to 120 days to reform a new cell, you want to remove this for about 90 to 120 days to do this. So what we would do is we would actually be removing these things for a certain period of time to rebuild the structure. The other thing would be bad fats. You would want to eliminate all the bad fat that's created a very toxic cell and creates a clogged up cell. So if this cell membrane is made up of fat and you're putting in bad fat, you're creating a very clogged cell that becomes very rigid. So now nutrients that are meant for the cell can't come in, and the reality is toxins therefore can't come out, creating a very sick, dirty cell within. And so if you realize is that this cell is going to then replicate a new cell that is no longer healthy and creates a disease. And so that's why we want to go back and put the good fat back in the body. But again, going back to the God fats we talked about, coconut oil, avocados, raw nuts, and such. And so toxins are our biggest culprit. True, as far as our culture, we have toxins in every product. Like if you see here, everything that is man-made has a plethora of toxins. You have these things that no longer the body recognizes. What happens with toxins, it also attaches to fat in the body, and not just at the cellular level, but also neurologically. We have lots of autism, ADD, people with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, all these tremors are all created from, again, toxicity. And so the more that we can deplete these things, the better your body's going to function and heal. And lastly, of course, stress, which that's one of our essentials with our Maximize Living program is again, making sure that you are responding better with stress. But this inflammation is the cause of all these diseases we're getting. If you notice, all the diseases that end with itis, arthritis, you have pancreatitis, all these colitis, all are the main root is inflammation. So what we do is the advanced plan is going back and really healing at the cellular level. And so this is the beauty of it, that these things can start to heal. And so we would want to then implement 5 things for a period of time. So no grains would be number 1. And this is really hard for people because we're used to having, again, breads, pasta, tortillas with our food, and rice. And so the reality is that this would not even be healthy grains. No oatmeal, no, not even brown rice. And so this can be very difficult. But the truth is with our recipe book, we've made this pretty easy where you can actually go and find some recipes that you can cook with. Again, when you're looking at the book, you have these symbols. You have the circle and the anchor. You would use recipes with the anchor. So many times people think that they can't have bread, but the truth is you have lots of options with nut flours, such as coconut flour, almond flour, that you can cook pastries, muffins with. And so there's so many ideas in the book itself, and you can also log on to our website. The other things, such as crackers, these crackers are really healthy here, where they're made out of flax seeds. You also have the recipe in the book, but you can actually just alter what you're having. So the good news is that there is other choices you can substitute for. So the next step, number 2, is no sugars. And this is by far probably the hardest one. Again, we have lateral shifts where you can change a good fat to a bad fat to a good fat. But the reality is sugar is in everything. And so many times it's in the worst form, which is high fructose corn syrup, like you see in these products here. So the truth is, with the core plan, you've already eliminated that junk food and everything that has that processed sugar. But now we're actually talking to the extreme where you wouldn't even have things such as honey and agave that are considered good, healthy sugars. So the truth is that for the time being, you're removing everything that turns to sugar. So you do need to read the labels. And so what we've done is specifically have brought out, this is one form of sugar that you can have, because you do not want to substitute things such as sweeteners such as Splenda and aspartame and NutraSweet, because of the fact that they're toxins, and these are created in a lab. They're, again, very toxic to your neurology. So stevia is an herb. You can find it in different stores, but stevia specifically can be a little bit bitter, but you start getting an adaptation to the taste. You use very limited quantities, but you can use that to sweeten your tea or lemonade, whatever the case is. But some of the baking recipes that we have here also call for xylitol, which is another option, but stevia would be by far the best. You would want to make sure you read all your ingredients, because even things such as this, again, cashew cereal makes a great cereal for the core plan, but the truth is that here you're still going with grain, and number 2, it's sweetened with cane juice, which again is a sugar. So you would want to avoid all sugars. And so again, the recipe book gives you ideas of how to cook this way without the sugars and making it fun. So make sure you also plug into our recipe nights. Number 3 is no fruit, and where in the core plan you can have fruit, bananas. At this point, you got to understand that fruit has a lot of sugar. So the only fruits that are very low in glycemic index is berries and green apples. So you can have that in moderation. Number 4 is having protein, about 15 to 20 grams per meal. Now you got to understand, since you're depleting your body from sugar, your body's going to be searching for things to burn for energy. And so within the first 2 weeks, your body's not getting sugar. It doesn't know how to burn fat yet. So you got to make sure you're eating multiple times a day, but probably about maybe 6 to 7 meals a day every 2 hours. And the protein is about maybe 15 grams per meal, so you don't start catabolizing your own muscle, which we don't want. And lastly is you want to really increase good fats. And people really think that is a hard concept to grasp, because we've always been taught that fat is going to make you fat. But the truth is, it's not fat that makes you fat, it's the oxidation that makes you fat. So all this oxidated stress, and then also the stress that we get, is what's bad for us. We want to go back and eat real God fat. So the truth is that we have to shift again our thinking before we apply this. So the key to this advanced plan, though, is that you wouldn't want to increase it within the first 2 weeks. You would want to start increasing it at bigger levels after the first 2 or 3 weeks. And the reasoning for that, again, is because your body is still a sugar burner and not a fat burner, so it hasn't developed the mechanisms to burn fat. So you got to retrain it to start listening to the receptors, and that's the key. Once you start healing the receptors that listen to insulin and leptin, your body starts burning fat, starts losing weight, and actually building muscle, as well as implementing the other 5 essentials, the Max T3. And so plug in again to our videos at MaximizeLivingDrMain.com. Thanks.